Welcome back to another episode of Fresh Out of College, your weekly dose of sports and pop culture. My name is Drew Campbell, and as always, I'm joined by my host, Brianna Chino.
Today we are joined by another special guest. His name is Race Porter, and he is a student athlete at the University of Washington. He is the punter and holder for the Huskies football team. Today we got to talk about his clothing apparel, which is inspired by mental health and kind of breaking that stigma called HOMS. And we also talk about a little bit about his UW history, his cool stories, and a little bit about his NFL goal.
Yeah, really fun podcast. Educational on the fact that we're talking about HOMS and kind of his outlook on that. I'm excited for it. And yeah, let's just hop into it.
Today we are joined by a very special guest once again. Today we have Race Porter on. So a little context about who he is. So he's a student athlete at the University of Washington. He is the punter for the Huskies. Race and I played Little League together, so that's where this connection is. And obviously we are big UW football fans, especially Drew. So we are super excited to have Race on. Thanks for joining us, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys.
Wait, I just want to, before we start this, where did you guys played Little League. Who batted where? I want to know. This is key information. So who was the leadoff hitter, because I was a 9-hole hitter, so I'm just saying that right now.
I was actually Race. We played Drew's team in the All-Stars. He played for Rug.
Oh,
do you remember?
Tough. Yeah. That's tough for him then.
Yeah, so we don't need to talk about it too much, but I think I was thinking about it yesterday. I was trying what's the best player comp for Race? I think for him it's like Kevin Kiermaier. He was that really fast outfielder that was kind of like a bandit out there, but also could run really fast and hit really well. Then Race also pitched, but he was at the top of the order, while I was a player that only played 2 innings a game because I wasn't very good. But I was mainly pitching.
Ryota was our ace when we needed.
But I couldn't swing the bat at all, which was the most important in the Little League. So.
Well, that's true. I mean, I was playing for the Roosevelt University Green Lake team, and that team was amazing, because it had me.
Yeah, sometimes I still give you a hard time about that game, huh, Drew?
Man, that was yeah. Well, Race, you've came a long way. Obviously, Ryota and I's athletic ability didn't take us to D1, but thanks for coming on. And what we like to do with our guest is kind of do an icebreaker. So I'm going to give you. I think I have 10 or 15 really hard-hitting questions, and don't put much thought into it. Just the first thing that comes out, and then we can elaborate on it.
Yeah.
But it's supposed to be really scary, so just be prepared. Okay.
Yep, ready for it.
All right. All-time favorite movie?
Probably Great Gatsby.
Nice. Some Leo in there. Okay.
Yep.
All right. Would you rather spend 2 months in space or 2 months in the ocean?
2 months in space, definitely. I'm terrified of the ocean.
You don't think you could see a shark come by?
No, I would freak out.
Ryota, what would you do right there? I think I'm taking ocean here.
Why? Tell me why, Drew. I want to hear.
I've seen a lot. I just feel like after watching Jaws and The Shallows, I feel like I need to really connect and see I can make this, and other people haven't made it, but I can make it in 2 months in the ocean.
So you want to take the challenge on? Is that what I'm hearing here?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Why not? You're not
See, for me, I've been in the ocean before. That's why I was kind of like, well, why wouldn't I try something new?
That's fair, but I'm saying deep into the ocean, into the abyss. All right, we're moving on then. Okay, Race, growing up, what player did you idolize and watch?
It was kind of tricky because I played so many different sports. I would say the 2 that come to mind when I was younger was Tiger Woods and Michael Vick. I was the biggest Michael Vick fan early on.
The Atlanta days. Nice. Favorite video game growing up? This is a tough one. I have a few contenders.
Honestly, Tiger Woods PGA Tour. 02, 04, I used to play hours and hours of that.
That's a good one. That game right there is a specialty game. I think for me, I played a lot of Madden before, it got all Ultimate Teamy. And I would make my player. And I remember going from an apartment to a house to a mansion, and I thought that was the coolest thing.
What position would you have your player be?
So I loved running back, But then back in the day, you could be any of those weird positions. So I tried defensive end, and then I think you could have even been like a punter. But nowadays it's all messed up.
Yeah.
But and then you got to go with the classics like Mario Kart. I always thought was fun whenever I was at my friend's house. But yeah, Ryota, what about you?
We started with the Wii in our household, so I mean, a lot of those Nintendo games are really fun. And then from a sports perspective, I think I played FIFA the most. Definitely.
All right. So we got soccer, we got golf, and we got football. Perfect. Okay. Race. If you could learn any skill instantly, what would it be?
I'd probably say be an expert sewer. That's the one thing that comes to mind right away.
That is something I have yet to master or learn. That is good. That is really good. That is key too.
It's a good skill to have.
Have you had to sew any of your uniforms up or anything?
No, none of uniform stuff. They handle all that stuff, which is nice.
Oh man. All right. Okay. Favorite TV show all time?
Probably Stranger Things, and I just finished it for the first time, so I'm kind of a bandwagon fan, I guess.
No. That's good. That's good. I mean, the fans can only hop on. I mean, that's the thing. I think for me, it's Mad Men. I'm just gonna throw it out there.
Yep.
I love Don Draper. I don't agree with all of his activities, but I think that show is just
he's just the man. He's the man. Don Draper is the man. I agree. Danny
actually got me a coffee cup that had Don Draper and like the iconic pose. So whatever. I have memorabilia. Nice. Okay. If you could visit one place and you could teleport, where would it be?
I would probably say Venice, Italy right now. That'd be my spot.
For me, it's Paris because before COVID shut down, I was going to go to Paris for my grad thing. But, how times have turned.
Yeah, you'll get back.
I'll get back there. I saved the points and miles. Okay. Would you rather have your last game against the Ducks or against the Cougars?
Cougars, no question at all.
Okay.
Go out on a good note.
There we go. Apple Cup for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. How many yards would you give John Ross in a 40-yard dash?
How many yards?
How many yards would you give him to make it even?
I would probably say, I want to say 10 yards. I hate to say that much, but he is lightning fast.
You would give him 10. There we go. I think, he is fast, but you can do it. You can do it.
Never know.
Apple or Android?
Apple for sure.
The ecosystem. Okay. So you came in last in your fantasy football league, but you can pick your punishment. You have to sit in the dog pack student section, but you either have to wear WSU apparel or Oregon Duck gear. Which one are you choosing and why?
Oh man, that's a back against the wall question. You
did get last.
I would honestly probably go Ducks. I shouldn't be sharing this, but I grew up a Duck fan, so I've got a little place in my heart for them. And anything Cougar is just making me grow up. So
that's fair. I mean, that's a good answer. That's a good answer. Who is the funniest teammate?
Man, we have some funny dudes on the team, but I'll have to go with Ryan Bowman. We're like really close. I can't. I mean, it's like always laughter around him, but
on the bus.
I would say, okay, I got a good one. There was one time we were coming in from a summer workout, and it wasn't even that crazy. And the reason he had eaten, he was actually he just goes, "Yeah, I'm gonna go throw up everywhere." Stall, and I was just throwing up everywhere, and we send it to the group chat. That's the one.
Oh my gosh, this was summer workouts.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh,
we've all been there. We've all had to do this.
Now, when I watch him play, when I look at back at the tape, I'm gonna remember that, and I'll just that'll be my tidbit.
Yep,
that's great. Okay, so now we're still back on teammates. Who would most likely be famous if they did not pursue football? And it could be yourself too. So give yourself some credit.
Okay.
Yeah. Who would be
would hope so.
What thing would they do?
I'm thinking my homie Byron Murphy. He would be either a clothing designer or he would do something cool. I don't know. He's got the most swag I think I've been around on a football team. So he would be my guest, and he would be doing something cool.
Nice. I got to watch him when he goes out for the Cardinals. I'll have to see his gear. There we go.
Yep.
Okay. Was the most challenging to hold for Peyton Henry or Tristan Vizcaino?
I would say Tristan, just because that was earlier on for my holding experience, so I was still getting the hang of it. Whereas now with Peyton, it's kind of second nature.
Okay.
But yeah, Tristan, and just it's an easy question because both of them are my best friends, so it's like really comes down to me. You know, that's what's nice about it. So,
that is true.
Yeah, I'd say Tristan.
All right, you have passed the quick hitters. Just a little bit of ice breaking and for everybody to understand who you are and what you're about. All right, topic 2, we're going to talk about your playing time at UW. As Riota told me, football wasn't always your primary sport, and like you said, you grew up with baseball, and I think you played track and basketball at O'Day. What kind of pursued you to play football in college?
It's kind of an interesting story. I was planning to either run track or play golf in college, and then I transferred schools my junior year, and so I wasn't eligible to play golf my senior year. So that's why I turned out for football. And that was my first time ever playing senior year, and I just had so much fun with it. And I turned out to be a receiver, but they needed a punter, so I ended up doing both. And I kind of fell in love with punting and kind of the art of it, and just kind of the skill it takes. And so at the end of the season, I was like, this would be awesome if I could play at the next level. And it just so happened to work out that UW gave me the opportunity to walk on, and I got in, and the rest is history. But it was kind of just a crazy sequence of events that led me to, get to play for the hometown guys.
It's funny how that works when you least expect it. And like sometimes when something doesn't happen, another door opens up, and I mean, that's incredible.
Yeah.
Congrats to you. And then obviously before the season, Coach Lake gave you deservingly a full ride scholarship. So congratulations there. I want to know your feeling going into that news, why he called you in, like break that down. And then the last 30 minutes, like, after receiving it, who did you call? Like, what was your reaction and feeling after receiving that elusive full ride scholarship?
Yeah, I mean, obviously I'm so grateful for it, and I was so happy. I think it was kind of tricky because in my experience at UW, we had a few walk-ons get scholarships, and it's always this kind of big, announcement in a team meeting, and everyone goes crazy. And so that's kind of always what I envisioned. And then obviously with COVID, that was like right in the thick and the heat of it all. And so we were just like barely allowed to be around each other. And so Coach Lake actually kind of just brought me up after one of our kind of team breaks, and he just told me personally one-on-one, hey, we're going to give you a scholarship. You deserve it, all this. And so it wasn't the moment I'd always envisioned, but it was a very, very cool moment for me. And just to have it one-on-one with Coach Lake, just the respect I have for him and all that, it was really special. And I'd say the first thing that comes to mind with that story is just like how grateful I was, but even more so how much harder it made me want to work for some reason, like a lot, I know a handful of guys who might say like, once I get the scholarship, yeah, then you can ease off. And for me, it was like, no, now I got to go prove that I really do deserve this. And it just made me want to grind harder. And I remember when I got back to my car, I called my dad first. Didn't answer. I called my mom next, and she didn't answer. And then I called my big sister, and she also didn't answer. Oh, no. And those would be my 3 that I would tell any good news to. So no one was there for me when I got that news, actually.
Well, if you have good news, you know who to call. Riota and I
got
hop on the pod.
Yep.
That's crazy though. I mean, also like I think you put it best. Like a lot of people when they get even their first contract or first job, they're like, okay, I did it. I'm basically set. But I think it just proves to your mindset and work ethic that you're like, I want to keep going. I want to push this forward. And I think we've even seen that with HOMS, which we'll talk about further, but I mean, just congratulations to you.
Thank you.
You set a school record your junior year, right? In 2019. That for longest punt average in a season with 44.6 yards. per
Oh,
punt.
no way. I
Yeah.
love that.
What can I say? I bring good news. I bear good news.
Oh, yeah.
All right. Okay. Is it fair to say Miles Gaskin and you are really good friends?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. If we had Miles Gaskin on this podcast, what would be his favorite race Porter story?
There's some good ones. So we actually lived together for 2.5 years. So there'll definitely be some good ones from them. But I would say appropriate for story would just be kind of starting HOMS. Just because Miles saw, where times together, he got me out of it. And so he would probably just say, his favorite story about me is us kind of starting that together and
more of it. But we have to talk about the Huskies. So,
yeah.
And I only get you on for so long. Okay, let's keep story time going. If you had a Chris Peterson story, and you don't have to, but if you did, what would you be your favorite Chris Peterson story? Is it, hyping all the players up, or going to a bowl game, or even telling you guys a story of like, powering through it?
That's tough. Coach Peterson is an unbelievable role model. He's just as good as they come. And I don't know if I have one singular story. I think just the way he leads people is so unbelievable. I guess the one thing that comes to mind would be his last speech that he gave us at the Vegas Bowl. It was the night before the game, and he always talks for a little bit, and he's such a good role model. He's such a good character. He never really shows you a whole lot of emotion just because he's so calm and collected, and he's got to be that individual for young men to follow, and you've got to be kind of even keeled. But he kind of showed a lot of emotion for the first time in this meeting, and he just talked about the most important kind of aspects of his coaching career and what he wanted to leave us with. And I would just say that the feeling I had in that meeting and what he was saying was just so special, and I'll take it with me forever. And it was just kind of a culmination of the 4 years I got with him. And it was just like, yep, here it is. And here's what I want to leave you with. And I remember everyone got kind of emotional, and that was pretty special.
Wow. Nice. Very cool. Well, yeah. And then obviously he leaves, but I think, Coach Lake coming into kind of resembles and embodies his, movement and kind of how he wants to lead men. Cause I think that's what Chris Peterson was all for. He was like, you can be good football players and that's kind of the second thing, but I really want to mold leaders and great men in the society. And which we have come to see that you are. But during your time at UW, you've had some really good special teams. What game was your most memorable?
Most memorable. Oh, there's a few. I think if you want to strictly talk special teams.
Yes, you know which game I'm talking about.
Probably the Utah game at home, the game winner. There's nothing like it. Tristan walk off. I mean, it was just the perfect. You couldn't have written it any better.
Going into that, did you say like, this is what we should do, blah, 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 or did you give him anything, or were you just like, he's in the zone, I have to be in the zone too, we got to do our things, or did you say anything before going out and attempting that game winner?
You know what? I don't think I did, because it all kind of happened so fast. We had the ball on the other end of the field, and we weren't even really expecting. I think at the start of the drive, I was just like, okay, if we get this game winner, let's go nail it. And it was just like, yep, you don't have to have all these speeds. You kind of just wait for the moment. And then when the moment comes, you just kind of black out. And I guarantee if you ask me, AJ, or Tristan, the three people from the op, everyone would be like, yeah, I don't remember anything. I just remember running towards the sideline after. So it's all kind of a blur, but once you're in those moments, there's only so much you can say, to someone. Yeah. You got to just trust that everyone's locked in and everyone's going to go operate. So yeah, nice. That was a pretty special one though.
That was crazy. I was hyped for that one. And I mean, that's what replay is for. You don't need to remember it now. You can look at it in replay.
Yeah.
What stadium has been the hardest to punt at or yeah. or play at in general? But
Honestly,
mostly
the
punt.
hardest stadium to punt at is UW. Our
Really?
home field. Yeah, the wind. I mean, it's just cold air up here in
Uh-huh.
Seattle. It's rainy. I mean, every time we play in Husky Stadium, the wind is doing something, and it's not consistent. It'll blow left to right, and on the other side of the field, it'll be right to left. But I'm grateful for it, and it teaches us a lot of kind of helpful things along the way. But if I had to pick an opposite one, or an opposing one, I would say there's some fun places to play. I would say Utah. I will just say Utah because my only shank of my career is at Utah, so I gotta say that that's the hardest.
You have that's true. That's fair as well.
Uh,
Um,
yeah.
I want to bring us back to 2018, the Apple Cup, more
Mm-hmm.
specifically. The weather conditions were absolutely terrible. Rain, snow, winds reaching 20 miles an hour.
Mm-hmm.
As a punter, how are you going into that? How are you preparing for that when, in Seattle, it doesn't get as snowy and, you really can't prepare for that, but how would you prepare for that in games or in practices?
Yeah, I mean, practicing is obviously you get what you get up here in Seattle. So like you got to be
Mm-hmm.
used to the rain, all that stuff. I think a way that you kind of just prepare for situations like that is you don't keep the balls dry if it's raining. You let it happen. You let the elements kind of get in, so nothing's new to you. If it's a windy day, you don't just go into the Dempsey. You stay out and you kick
Mm-hmm.
outside and you really kind of grit through it. But I think the key for a game like that Apple Cup is just staying warm, keeping your body warm. That's the only thing that's really important because, I mean, once you catch the ball, if you're punting, if there's ice on it, there's nothing you can do about it. There's no way you
Mm-hmm.
can prepare for that. There's no way you can kind of get used to those snowy conditions. So it's as long as your body's warm and you're capable of doing what you can do at the highest level, anything else the coaches are going to understand if there's like a miscue or something like that. So
Yeah. Yeah. I'm just trying to think because I mean, the snow does get really crazy there. And it's just like,
oh yeah.
how are you mentally preparing for that, I guess? And even more so, are you wearing gloves or are you
Uh,
Vladimir Guerrero in it and not even going up to the
I
plate with no
like I
gloves?
like going Vladimir Guerrero. I've got my trusty hand warmer, so I always keep my hands in there, and they're able to stay pretty warm. We've got some pretty good heaters on the sideline too.
Okay. There we go.
That I know, like one of them is so good that a couple guys were burning their shoelaces because of how hot it was. So we can stay warm. That's not the issue. It's just once you get out there, especially for a specialist only going out there so often, you gotta.
That's true. You got to keep your body warm and especially your hands, I feel like. Let's talk more about punching because I feel like it's a really interesting part of the game. What are you trying to do with the ball? Are you just trying to I mean, I feel like game situations dictate it, but when you're going out there, are you trying to spin it or does the opposing player being the punt returner affect kind of how you're going to punt this ball, or are you just trying to swing for the fences?
Yeah, it's definitely, it definitely depends on the scenario and the situation. But being in a league like the Pac-12, you've got explosive returners,
Mm-hmm.
highly talented guys back there, and so I like to view it as kind of like a game of keep away. So obviously, you want to go for as many yards as you can on a punt. Location is one of the most important things that people don't really kind of appreciate with the punting. You kind of just want to see the big high, spiraling ball. That's what everyone wants to see. But if you can put a low driven one right on the sideline and give them no chance for return, that's just as effective, if not more. But yeah, I'd say like punting comes down to a nice mix of a few different things. You want a location, hang time is obviously huge. You don't want to blast the ball way past your coverage and then
True.
give them no time to kind of be able to break down and make a tackle. So it's like you got to find a nice happy medium of a bunch of different things. But yeah, it's definitely an art, and it's been a lot of fun to try to kind of work on.
Yeah, and you forgot one aspect. Everybody's trying to go for you.
Oh
And I
yeah.
think that is a scary part, especially if one of the defenders comes at you and hits you and then you're all the way down.
Yeah. It's
That's the mental aspect where I'm like, oh my.
You can't be thinking about anything other than what you're doing. That's the tricky part, and it takes a while to get used to that.
Okay, let me ask you this then. Let me go off of that. When do you think, because you just started punting your senior year of high school,
Mm-hmm.
at what point of your career were you like, okay, I'm not scared anymore about these guys coming over, and I'm not scared of like shanking it or anything. When did you know, you know what, I got this. I'm just gonna go in and day out, punt this ball, and obviously break a record doing it. But what point in your career did you get to that point where I feel comfortable doing this?
Yeah, I probably honestly, that's a great question. And I would say this most recent summer, right before the season, is when I really kind of gained my first real confidence. Like, obviously, earlier on, I had confidence that I can do it, but
Mm-hmm.
it was more of a questionable confidence. You know what I mean? And you don't really get that. I don't make excuses, but you don't really get to feel that until you know you're the starter. You know what I mean? Like,
Interesting.
if
Okay.
you're the backup, you don't really know when you're going to be punting. You don't,
Mm-hmm.
certain situations, but it might have been one punt every other week. And so you don't really get to find that until you are playing and you're the guy. And I think that goes with any position. You don't really get a feel or flow for the game until they're looking for you. But yeah, I'd say right before this season, I really started working on the mental side of the game. Because you get to a point where I've done this 1,000 times. Physically, I know what to do. I know what my body needs to do. I
Mm-hmm.
know where I got to be. And then it comes down to the mental. Okay, can I block out the people rushing? Can I block out the crowd noise? Can I execute under extreme scenario and situations? And that's when you start really gaining a whole new level of confidence.
Yeah. You talked about questionable confidence, and I feel like I have questionable confidence even when I'm doing my daily routines, and not football or any other profession. So I mean, that is a huge thing. When you hit a bomb of a kick or place it inside the 1 or the 20, what is your like? How are you like? How many people come up to you and congratulate you on that, or like what are you feeling when you just absolutely kill a punt? Um,
It's I think the one thing that I've been working on is really watching the ball flight after like a
okay.
really good punt, and just like really getting a good mental image of it. Just because if you're going to visualize afterwards, or when you're working on kind of visualization stuff, being able to have a good picture and a good feeling of what that ball felt like and all that stuff is super key. And then obviously afterwards, you got to make sure the guy doesn't return it. If we're talking in a game situation, before I go celebrate, I got to make sure my guys, tackle him or all that. And then depending on what, if it's a nice pin, I'll go show love. I know Kyler Gordon down 2 on the
Mm-hmm.
1 this year, so you got to go show your guy love for being on the other end of it. And then I guess the first thing I can think of is Coach Lake. Coach Lake is he's always fired up. He loves stuff, little things like that can change a game, and not a whole lot of people know about the momentum and little things like that. He's the first person on the sideline to come up and give you a high five. And so I'd say go turn up with Coach Lake after a bomb. That's what I'd do.
Definitely. And I want to know, so Jake Browning in his career at UW was a pretty good punter.
Mm-hmm.
Did he take lessons from you?
No, not at all. I was taking lessons from him on a handful of different things, but definitely not the other way around.
Come on, you got to give yourself some credit here. Just give it. How would you grade his punt then? His punting?
I'd give him probably a strong 8.5 out of 10 if I
There we
had.
go.
He knew how to do it. He never tried to do too much, and that's kind of what it comes down to.
That's awesome. All right, let's go to holding now. Um, so how? I mean, what goes into holding? I know a lot of people just overlook it because you have the kicker, but what all goes into the craft of holding and really securing that and making the extra point or field goal happen?
Yeah, I would say, if I had to go in depth on holding, which not many people ever do, because it's overlooked and honestly is reasonably overlooked because it's not a huge deal. I would say the most important part is probably just the relationship you have with the kicker. Everything aside from being able to catch the ball, spin it, the laces, all that stuff. It's just being able to be someone for the kicker
Mm-hmm.
to rely on, to be comfortable with, to trust, because a kicker's got to be focused on and worried about making the kick, let alone having to worry about the hold or where the laces are going to be. So you got to be someone that the person can really trust. And then on the other side of that trusting with the snapper. So, the snapper trusts that you're going to get the ball down, all that stuff. It's just, you kind of got to be this middleman for the whole operation. And then ideally no one ever notices you because you're getting the operation done effortlessly, laces out, and that's all anyone ever has to think of. But I don't know, aside from once you get the hang of catching it and putting it in the spot, it's just repetition, and it's an easy motion to repeat. So I would say taking it to another step would be just the relationships between the two specialists. Yeah.
I like that. Okay. This leads me into my next question. Obviously there's fake field goal punts and fake kicks happening. Do you have the final say in that? Cause I know in BYU, you had a chance to take it to the house. I won't go much into detail, but do you have the final say and to say like, okay, we're going to do this fake kick, or what are you like watching from the defense to give you the green light?
I don't have the final say is the answer to that. That's funny that you brought that story up, because in that situation, I did have the final say. And I was the only one that knew it going into it. So yeah, no, it's always called by the coaches, and it's always a situation that usually we can check out of if we don't get the right look. And so in that BYU game, now that, everything is water under the bridge, I can share this. The first field goal, we went out there with a fake called, and I didn't love the look. And so I checked out of it. And just because we could run it next time. And then we did run a field goal on the next drive, I believe, and they didn't call it going into it. And so we were supposed to just kick a field goal. And when we got out there, they were in the exact look that we had practiced all week. And so I just kind of brought the guys in real quick in the little huddle, and I just said, hey, it's on. We're running the play. And a couple of guys kind of looked at me like, are you serious? And I was like, yeah, we're running it. I see the freaking look. Let's go. And we had practiced it all week, so there's no way it wasn't going to work. Everyone knew exactly where they were supposed to block. We got the exact look they showed us. I called it, and one of the guys missed the block. I got tackled behind the line, and I would say that was my second Coach Pete story. If I had to talk about one, was the conversation I'll say we had on the sideline afterwards for calling my own play. So that was a nice lesson learned, and from now on the coaches will definitely be calling the fakes.
That's awesome though. I mean, you were so confident going into it. I mean, you're like, let's go. I've got this. I feel like, some of the linemen
hey, I know that's on them, but hey, it comes back to me. So that's the way you got to look at it.
That is true. That is true. But I mean, that's a great story, and I love to hear it, especially the nitty gritty stuff that fans don't really get to hear. Okay. So spring training is starting up, I think, next month for you guys. What player do you think will surprise people and kind of break out? That is, a freshman or sophomore. Do you have any insight on that?
Yeah, I'd say if I had to guess on any breakout players, my first thought would be I'll go 2 offense and 2 defense. Both offense, I got to say, our 2 freshman receivers from last year, Rome and Jalen, have been working their tails off. It's been a lot of fun to see them grow. Obviously, everyone who's a freshman looks tiny to me. And so it's good to see them kind of gain some weight and get some man strength coming in. And then I'd say on defense, my boy Kyler Gordon, obviously he's a special teams maestro last year. So it'll be fun to see him making some hits and picking some Pac-12 QBs off next year. Definitely.
Nice. Hell yeah. So now you said that you're the big man on campus, like deservedly so. What advice would you give anybody that wants to play D1 and is going in, their freshman season? What advice would you give them from spring camp to all the way up to the season?
I would just say advice would be focus on the mental side of the game. At this level, Division I sports, everyone's got the talent. Everyone's got the body. Every punter I'm going to play against can hit the NFL ball. Everyone can do it. It's what can you do to separate yourself, not only from others, but your own teammates? And a lot of that is the mental side of the game, being mindful, meditation. Like, if you can really have a strong mental toughness along with a great physicality, there's not a whole lot you can't do at this level. And so I would just say, yeah, that would represent one of the things, but just like, what can you do to set yourself apart from those? Every team in the country is doing lifts. Every team, they're all doing conditioning. What can you do to set yourself apart? That would be my advice.
Word of wisdom. There we go.
So that's a perfect segue, talking kind of about mental health and how you separate yourself. And we're going to talk about your clothing brand, Race. And I feel like that has a very strong mission and connection to that aspect. So do you want to kind of start off and talk about what inspired you to start HOMS and that mission that you have?
Yeah, so I was going through a tough time, in my life. And the cool thing about HOMS is I didn't like set out to start a clothing brand. I wasn't like, okay, I'm gonna do this, let's make this happen. I was still just a junior in college, so I had no plans with it. I was just making myself clothes, is what the very start of it was. And the first two shirts were just kind of based on how I was feeling, and I had the full heart on the sleeve and the broken heart, and it would help me get through tough days. If I woke up and I was not feeling so great, instead of being sad, I would just throw the shirt on, and for some reason it felt like just a little piece of armor for me. And that's kind of how it got started. It was just making shirts for myself, kind of a little mood booster. And then my close friends started noticing, and they wanted shirts, and they were asking me about it. And, just those conversations I was having with them was enough to kind of lift my spirit and kind of change my mood in the right direction. And so I was like, well, if this can do this for me, maybe it could do it for other people as well. And so that's when I started kind of looking into the business side of it, and really starting to kind of promote the product on my social media, and my friends were doing the same. And then it kind of got some wheels, and the rest is history. So that's kind of the origin story for sure.
And it's definitely taken off the past year, definitely. And it's amazing that the awareness that you're spreading too, because it's not just the brand, like you said, right? You're spreading awareness, and you've been on TV talking about these issues that a lot of people overlook, especially in sports. Mental health and like meditation and yoga and everything like that is growing, definitely in professional sports. But at the college sports level, I'm kind of curious to hear, like, is there stuff that the program is helping you guys with at UW?
Yeah, there's I think UW, obviously, with Seattle Children's, and then UW Medicine obviously being so well renowned, it's at the forefront of that kind of stuff, and that trickles down into stuff like the football program and the athletics department, and they have really, really awesome mental health professionals that I talk to on a normal basis, and they're all working. There's resources for all the athletes. There's resources for everyone regarding mental health and mental illness, and so they're one of the best. I can't compare them to anything else, but it's wonderful at UW for sure.
I think it's also interesting that there's this stereotype or stigma of athletes going to ask for help is like kind of shunned upon, or they're like, oh, they're never going to do it because there's a masculinity kind of effect or whatever it might be, right? Like, even I think when I was at school, I was a tutor. And something we were taught at, through our training is some students are afraid to go ask for help, or just even normal students, not even student athletes, but they're afraid to ask for help. And I think I'd imagine in the sports world, that is very true. I think one time I had a pretty rough patch when I was playing, and I didn't really know who to go to. And I ended up going to my coach, but there's this weird, stereotype of like, athletes can't go ask for help. I guess my question, dude, how do you break that? How do you break that stigma?
Yeah, that's huge. And I think a lot, being someone who is an athlete at a high level, and having opened up about my struggles, that's one of the first things a lot of people mention is, being an athlete. It's crazy that you're doing this. And, hearing that so many times has really made me take a step back and be like, okay, how can we change this? Like you said. And the cool thing about the clothes for me, and how that's been my expression, is it's supposed to represent that. And then when you take the clothing, which has the meaning and the mental health and breaking that stigma, on its own, and then you put it in the hands of all my friends that play football and then these guys in the NFL, Miles, they don't have to be openly talking about their mental illness or their mental health struggles. But if they're wearing the hoodie and they're wearing the products, then they're representing that.
A lot of the people that are wearing the shirt, don't need to speak out on it, but just the smallest thing makes a huge difference. And like you said, it acted as a piece of armor for you. And it's true. Like the smallest thing can make you feel safe and help you grow. And when you see that unity with what you're doing with the shirts, it brings more awareness. And it doesn't nowadays, it doesn't take just one person to speak out on it. It should take everybody. And that should be, what we should be talking about. And also, I think you guys are right. I think what Ryota said and what you are saying, I think we do need to break the point where it's like, oh, athletes, mental illness with athletes. I think it should be a human aspect in the sense that we're all humans. We're all trying to learn. We all have our battles. And I think it comes down to where people see us, and they should put everybody on a level to where it's like, we're all humans at the end of the day. We're all just trying to spread positivity and fight this battle. And I think what your shirt is bringing is everybody can do this. It doesn't just have to be athletes that are wearing the shirt. It can be anybody. And that's just the great thing about it. So for me, that I think is what sticks out to me with your shirt apparel and how it brings everybody together with not, having to fully go into, I'm not an athlete, I don't think I can wear this. It really breaks down the barriers for that.
Yeah, well said. I appreciate that.
And I think kind of going off of that, like you said, it's growing a lot. We get to see Miles wear his own clothing, express himself. We've seen all the other teammates. What's the next step for HOMS? Like how is it going to continue growing? Do you have an idea of your strategy and whatever, business model?
Yeah. The next step, obviously football is my number one right now. And it's, I obviously would love to go play in the NFL, and that'd be my number one goal. And that's, clothes would definitely have to take a backseat to that. So the cool thing about the clothes is the next step is kind of just keeping it where it's been at, just focusing on quality products, spreading the kind of mission along with them. And then, my goal, I kind of have a corny little phrase, but it's mental health, but make it cool. So, we're not just breaking the stigma, we're really making it cool. And for me to do that in the position I'm at with HOMS, that requires cool products, new products, stuff people haven't seen before. That's my passion. And yes, the mental health is like the foundation for it all, and that's why it started. But I keep coming back to viewing myself as a clothing designer, and then what's my job as a clothing designer? It's to push out cool new products. And so that's kind of the next step, is just kind of continually working on that, figuring out what's good for Seattle, what's good for the Northwest, all that. It's just like, what's next. And that's kind of what I love so much about it, is you're always looking forward.
You talked about quality products. How are you making these shirts, in a sense, quality, or how are you differentiating that from other ones?
Yeah, so I've had about 2 years now of working through samples and kind of figuring out what works best. And you would think it's easy to get, cotton t-shirts, but when you're working on getting quantities in every size and certain colors, it becomes tricky, and you have to have the right manufacturing set up for it. But in terms of, finding quality, I'm always going quality over, a designer or something like that. It's got to be a comfy shirt. It's got to, fit well. It's got to be all that stuff before just a cool design. So working on, cotton polyester, all the materials, learning how the stitching works, all that stuff, breaking it all the way down has been a lot of fun for me recently. I kind of took it for granted, but like I said, 2 years in, and I'm still looking for a staple hoodie, to use. I've still been sampling a bunch. So just working on little stuff like that. And then details that people don't really kind of notice if you're not paying attention. So like metal eyelets, the tags on the inside of the shirt, getting it all the way down to the exact specifications really adds a nice touch for, clothes, stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, you bring up a good point. You want to make it to where people wear it, but you're also bringing this powerful message in mental health, and also, you know, keeping people unified in that sense. So, but you're right. It has to be cool. It has to be comfortable, because at the end of the day, we have to wear clothes.
Yep.
It's as simple as that. I mean, I wouldn't wear something that's itchy and, you know, I'm allergic to, or that rips every single time. And so I think you gotta have a good set in that. What are the steps that you're taking in terms of, are you reaching out to people and saying, do you like this or that? Or are you just keeping up with the trends to kind of get that sense of shirt still concise?
Yeah.
Like, what are you doing
You know, I think with any art, you know, and stuff like that, you gotta draw inspiration from other stuff. And so I follow a lot of my favorite brands really closely, and, you know, designs that they do that, you know, seems like it gets a good response. I'll kind of work on stuff like that, whether it be, you know, kind of replicating the design and making it my own, or a colorway, or, you know, stuff like that. I've drawn a lot of inspiration from Justin Bieber. I don't know if it's his company or what, but it's called Drew House. I've done some designs, colorways based off of that. It's just like all a melting pot of what people like. So that's one of my favorite things about being able to run the Instagram for the clothing account, is kind of interacting with people and making it feel like an interactive process. You know, we're not just dropping stuff and you're buying it. We're asking what kind of stuff you guys like. We're asking what colorways you would like in a specific product. And so then when we do drop it, say we did a Instagram story poll and all these people said they like this one, and then they see that that's the one we chose to drop, they might feel more inclined to get it because it feels like they had a say in it. And it's genuine. They do have a say. I don't want to say it like, oh yeah, we're just trying to figure out how to get you to buy it. No, we really do listen to everyone, and that HOMS community that we're growing absolutely has a say in it. So it's fun to be able to interact and kind of build products off of customers and stuff like that.
Yeah, it's crazy. Like 20 years ago, I don't think we would have even had the chance to, you know, do an Instagram poll or have that be so connect with our consumers. And it's crazy. I mean, it brings a great opportunity to spread awareness, but also to promote the shirt and get the feedback that they want. But yeah, that's really cool. You talked a little bit before we got on the podcast about you recently got a camera, right? That you went out. Can you talk us through kind of like that inspiration and what you want to do with that said camera?
Yeah. So a handful, you know, I've been on a handful of podcasts. I've talked to the news, all that stuff. And a lot of it is kind of sharing my story and how I started HOMS. And as you can see, you know, that conversation is manifested in a few different things. We talked about the clothing side of it, which is kind of what I like to come back to. But one of the things that I've really been wanting to focus on and kind of creatively focus on is the mental health side of it, you know, because when you're talking about HOMS and you're talking about the clothing, when you talk about mental health along with it, it's kind of overarching stuff, right? So it's how does it represent through the clothing? What does the community look like? And, you know, with this camera, one of the things that I've really been stressing is delving into the mental health side of it. Okay. So like, I'm not just talking about how I started the brand and all that stuff. We're really looking at mental health and my viewpoints on it and why there's stigma around it. And then not just vaguely talking about it, but going into how can we change it? You know, aside from me and all my friends wearing hoodies, what can we really do on a personal level to start looking at our own mental health and stuff like that? And so with the camera, I'm hoping to kind of do some video project stuff, maybe YouTube, Instagram stuff, just kind of more focused on the mental health side of things specifically. I have nothing to do with clothing. It won't, you know, be anything like that. It won't. And I'm excited about it. It's going to be, I'm going to try to film a lot of areas around the kind of Northwest Seattle area out in the mountains. And my hope for it is to be kind of an escape, you know, with everything we're going on and how we're always on our phones. I feel like a lot of people feel like you're kind of just trapped in this little world, especially with COVID, and you can't go anywhere. And so if I can be, you know, if I can represent an opportunity for someone to escape just by looking at their phone, I'm realizing, more and more with our generation, that's something that people need. And so that's kind of the direction I'm headed in. I'm still working through it, but I'm really excited, and we'll see where that takes us.
Yeah. I mean, you hit it. I think mental illness is still really a taboo topic, but even with the fact that COVID and everybody shut down, I think it's now even more, we need kind of that outlet. And with that video, I think you're trying to do is you're trying to, focus mostly on how, or is it give people relief in that sense? And like, give them a sort of, okay, I'm struggling with this too. We're all in this together. Or is it something else?
It's definitely it's partly that, it's definitely drawn from my own struggles. So whether or not, I don't think I'll go too far into that. I think
Fair.
I'll have some outlets for that a little later on, but it's more just drawing from my own experience. Here's my thoughts, and here's mental health, and here's what kind of conversations draw out from all that. And hopefully it can be an escape, or it can be kind of a learning experience, a learning process for people. Or like you said, it can be, if one sentence clicks with someone, then it's someone that they can relate to. It's something that they, and if that works, then they watch more videos, and maybe they try some of the techniques I suggest and all that. And so just something for people to connect with. Yeah.
Definitely. You got a really good plan there. I'm excited.
Yeah, it'll be fun.
And then sort of to sidetrack, you talked about before, how you're going to expand HOMS or what's the next step. You talked about the NFL. Talk us through how are you going to get there? Like, what is that goal? What are you envisioning in 5 months from now and a year from now? What is it going to be, that process?
Yeah. So I think that process right now has me at kind of an overall focus on my body and my strength. And I've been doing these lifting circuits for 5 years now, 2 times a year. And it really comes down to, okay, everyone's doing the same workout. Like I was saying earlier, what are you doing to separate yourself? So I've got a new meal plan. I've been working on sleeping, more than I've ever worked on. So like getting an exact bedtime and making sure I hit that. And then I've been going to yoga 3 times a week, which is a first for me. And I'm just kicking myself I didn't start doing it earlier. Just how good it's been for my body. But that process is really starting with my body, and then obviously moving towards, when we're actually playing football, back to the technique in the form of punting and all that stuff. But I think the most important difference in the process now, where I'm, not just looking for a starting spot, I'm really trying to take it to the next level, would be just kind of the day-to-day mindset. So one day at a time, moment to moment, just being focused on the task at hand. And when I'm out there on East Field and I'm warming up for punt, I'm not thinking, okay, I got to warm up, I got to hit all these great punts so I can go play in the NFL. I'm just focused on each kick at a time. I'm focused on how it feels on my foot. What, if it's not necessarily the kick I wanted to hit, why not? Oh, shoot, and next one. You're really focused on the way stuff feels, and breaking it down and thinking of stuff in new ways, so you can kind of approach the game in a whole new way, just because that's kind of that's what I view as what it takes to get to that next level. So yeah, one day at a time kind of mindset.
I've seen videos, of you working with Michael Dixon. I'm assuming that's had a huge impact on kind of your career path as well.
Oh yeah. I think the cool thing about that, shout out to my buddy Joel. He's obviously friends with him, so he made that happen. And it was so fun to, see up close someone I watch on TV and I really kind of study. And the thing that was so motivating about that experience was, I thought I'd go into it and afterwards just be like, oh my gosh, that guy is so much better than me. It's not even close. And no discredit to him, he's unbelievable. And watching him kick ball, I mean, I don't think he hit one bad ball all day. But I hit a couple balls that were right there with him. And so I think that experience was like, okay, you've got it. Like, you've got the talent to go. You've seen he's all pro his first season, I believe. And so getting to kick with an all pro punter and seeing a few of my balls, knowing I'm not even nearly where I should be and I can be, it was just like motivating, like the scholarship. I'm like, okay, yeah, let's go do this now. Like it's really right there. But I think one of the key elements of kind of being in a position I am is finding role models, finding people to kind of, like I said with the clothing, find these brands that you like to draw from, find these athletes that you want to kind of model your game after, and then put your own spin on it. I think that's huge, and he's been a huge influence in my game, and it was an awesome opportunity to get to go kick with him for sure.
Definitely. That can go for anything really in life. Finding that mentor and somebody that will work with you side by side. That's great.
Yeah.
It's also pretty cool to know, like, I can do this. It's like you said, you went out and you kicked with him, and you're like, some of those kicks I can do it. Just now consistently every single day, got to put that there, and then put it on tape.
Yep.
But yeah.
Totally.
That's great. And I'm assuming, football, you watch a lot of film. So I'm assuming, especially in punting, there's just as much, or whether it be, kind of the analytics of, if you kick it to the left side, it's 10% less chance of, them succeeding or something like that. I'm kind of curious on that as well.
Yeah, definitely. People don't understand how strategic punting is. I get a lot of friends who are like, well, you don't need to watch film, or you don't have to go to the meetings or anything like that. And there's a lot that goes into it that people don't kind of think about. Like you said, strategy wise, is there something that you see with the punt return unit, that when they're in this look, they're bringing pressure off the right side and I got to get it out faster? Or in a safe look, do I have more time to hold it and let my return or the gunners get down there and make the tackle? So there is a lot of stuff that goes into it. And the other thing about, watching film, I'd say it's more than any other position, obviously kicking and snapping, but just like watching your own film and watching your own technique is the best way to be able to kind of correct yourself. And that's the funny thing is, theoretically, it should be pretty much the same thing every time, whereas if you're a linebacker dropping back into coverage, it's going to be different if the quarterback is passing it or if he's handing it off for a run. It's looking completely different. Whereas punting, every rep is fairly similar. And so it's a lot easier to just kind of clip all your punts together and go through and be like, okay, well, I overstepped on this one, or, my drop was off on this one. So yeah, there is definitely, I don't think it's as involved as other positions, learning schemes and coverages and all that stuff, but there's a lot that goes into it that, the public eye doesn't really account for.
But before you go out there, right, isn't like Coach Lake or the special teams coach telling you we're going to go this way, or the formation is everybody's going to be going to the right side, so kick it to the right side? Or is it more like, is it?
Yeah, no, I am definitely not just kicking it wherever I want. We usually like to break the field down into thirds. So there's the hash to the sideline on the right side, the middle of the field, and then hash to the left side. And so as much as I can get it as close to the sideline as possible, that's the goal, whether we're going right or left. It just makes it a lot harder for the returner. But yeah, like, situational on the field. We've got a bunch of different styles. And I think that's the cool thing, being around for so long, I've learned so many different kicks. And so this year we're really hoping to be able to kind of spread it out and be really strategic. And I always say to our special teams coach, I want you to view me as a weapon, not just a punter. Like I want to be, so like, trust me. And, late in the game to pin them deep or flip the field, you can trust me as a weapon and make sure that that's the kind of mindset going in, rather than just kind of giving the ball away, then you're more kind of on attack for sure.
Yeah. I think you're right. I mean, definitely when I'm watching, I'm like, and the game is getting, I think we had the Huskies had a few games where it was, they needed to pin the opposing team deep, because you don't want to just bring it out to the 30 or the 25. It makes a big difference if you're running a 2-minute drill from going to the 25 to the 1, it's a huge.
Oh, yeah. The percentages are crazy. Totally.
Do you take in, like we already said, do you take into account analytics and how much he does a fair catch or anything like that to kind of ease your decision?
Absolutely. We look at the returners each week. And, there's a lot of guys that, say this guy doesn't fair catch. So like, you've got to, if you're gonna put the ball somewhere where he can return it, you got to make sure it's got a good hang time and your guys are down there, or else he's gonna try something. So there's definitely analytics that go into that. There's also, like I said, the thirds of the field. If you're putting the ball between the numbers and the sideline, I think the average return goes down astronomically. And so then if you're accidentally hitting it in the middle field, the guy can go anywhere, and obviously the percentages kind of match that. But there's definitely a lot of those analytics that kind of come down to, okay, if we're at this spot, where do we need to put the ball? What's reasonable? And then, something that people don't really think of all the time is trying to do too much, So if we're trying to pin them deep, you'd rather have it on the, 7-yard line instead of getting greedy and then having it go in the end zone and come all the way out to the 20. So just knowing where you're at in the field and the percentages to go around it is huge.
Nice. Yeah. I definitely did not know any of that going into there. I think the last thing I have for you personally, as a fan, how did you ever kick to Dante Pettis?
Yeah. I
in practice?
All the time. Yep.
Did you ever get to tackle him, or was, how did you ever pin him, or did he have to do a fair catch or stuff like that? I mean, this guy was prolific at UW when it comes to punt returns.
Yeah, he could get to everything. I remember that was, a couple of weeks, because I was always the scout team punter when he was the punt returner. And our coaches would be like, I want you to spread the ball all over the field. Like, don't let him get to the ball. And I would hit some just money balls right by the sideline, and he'd somehow find a way to catch it and then spin out of a tackle, and he'd be coming downhill all the time. So, yeah, it's been fun being able to kind of play with those kind of guys, and you take for granted some of those opportunities for sure.
Definitely. I mean, it suits you well for the NFL. I mean, you were definitely going against some of the great NFL punt returners, and it just the more repetition and the more experience you have against those guys will pave you well.
Totally.
That's great. Well, Rio, did you have any more questions?
No, I think that settles it for me.
All right, Race. Thanks for coming on. We really appreciate you taking your time out of your day, your busy day, in fact. And for anybody listening, we will put a link down to HOMS, to the website and to the Instagram. And yeah, so everybody go check that out first and then check out the podcast, but you already listened to it. So just whatever. Okay. Thank you again. And we will see you guys next week.
Appreciate it, guys.
Thanks, Race.
Yep.